We'll start off with the Twitter poll here, and make sure to give us a follow at Sabres Semantics. Stay up to date with any polls that we release that we're going to talk about on the show to get your opinion and voices heard there. The first one is, how do you feel, Sabres fans, about what Kevyn Adams said in the press conference? The options I put was, he said some good things, said nothing of substance, some good, some same old, and expecting big changes. 78.6% said nothing of substance. I'm actually shocked it wasn't higher. 14.3% said some good, some same old, and then 3.6% for both. He said some good things and expecting big changes. So going off of that, like, are you surprised that the fans reacted the way that they did? And even in the game against Detroit the other night, we heard like fire Adams' chants and everything. And I know he's just, the guy that is taking all the heat right now, and he's not the only guy that should take the heat. But again, going off of what he said in the press conference, I almost don't blame fans for reacting the way that they did. And even he said he understands them, but he keeps going back to this whole, there's a long-term plan in building an organization, not just for one season. But when you miss the playoffs for 14 straight years, and he's been here now for 4 or 5 of those, it's hard to give somebody multiple benefits of the doubt in that situation.
Long-term plan? What's the short-term plan?
Well, when he was asked about the $8 million in cap space that he currently has, he just said, you have to look at everything, not just this year. Well, he said that, but then he went out and got Jason Zucker in the offseason, and then they didn't go and make another move for a top 6 forward, which everybody had said that he should have done, and he doesn't want to go out and get a guy with 5 years left on his term, and I understand that, but at the same time, if there was a deal for Martin Necas, he talked about there was a player in a trade that they tried to do in the summertime, and it didn't come to fruition, and it was only going to sign possibly a 2-year extension. Like, you have to make that move. If you're serious about winning and you're serious about wanting to go forward as a playoff team this season, a 2-year deal for Martin Necas is not going to kill you. And again, whether he resigns or not, that's a whole different conversation, which got into the Buffalo is not a destination city. So there was just so much to unravel with it. And the second time around I watched it, I tried to watch it with a little bit more of, I'm trying to find the word here, fairness for Kevyn Adams, as opposed to when we all listened to it live and thought it was a complete train wreck. But the things that he talked about were the things that people have said that he needed to do in the summer, and when the season started, he said that he believes in this group and that the moves that they made, he believes in the guys that they have in that room. Well, it's not working right now.
Yeah, so I'll start with the Necas thing, because to me that's the most interesting. So I listened to 32 Thoughts the other day, Elliot Friedman and Kyle Bukauskas. I liked some of what they said. I didn't like a lot of what they said, but it was interesting that Friedman specifically mentioned Necas, and Necas had said to Carolina, you can trade me anywhere, because one, he has no trade protection. He was an RFA. He had no say in where he was traded to. But he essentially, Friedman, in so many words, said Necas said he'll go anywhere. He doesn't care. No matter where he goes, whether he stays in Carolina, gets traded to Columbus, gets traded to Buffalo, gets traded here, no matter where, he was only signing a 2-year deal, as evidenced by the fact that he signed a 2-year deal with Carolina. You said it perfectly. You still do that deal. 2 years of Martin Necas? What's the why? Why didn't you do that?
Well, then Adams came out and said that you guys would have tortured him for the return.
Who cares? That right there, then you should be fired. If you care what fans say about moves that you make, you should be fired. Like, he wouldn't be leading the league in points if he was in Buffalo. I understand that, but he would be an effective top 6 forward here that you would have for 2 years. And if you can't convince a player after having him in your building and in your organization for 2 years that he shouldn't stay here, that means you failed during those 2 years. He traded for Ryan McLeod, who was 1 year away from RFA. Do you think Ryan McLeod is signing an 8-year deal here? No. Like, Botterill traded for Jeff Skinner when he had 1 year left. And even though they didn't make the playoffs, Botterill was still able to convince him to sign. You don't know what a player will do and once you get them in your organization. Just get them here. And he I don't know, maybe he thought that people were going to be like, oh, maybe he's right. 2 years in Necas would have been really bad. We haven't made the playoffs in 14 years. 2 years in Necas would have been unreal.
And he doesn't have 5 or 6 years left on his deal, which is
he shouldn't
the thing
have
that
1
he's
year
scaring.
left.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the player, you mean. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
yeah.
I don't know. And the fact that he said he doesn't want guys with 5 years left on his deal also contradicts everything he says. I want players that want to be here. Well, players with 1 year left away from free agency probably don't want to be here. Do you think Greenway's going to resign? Do you think Zucker's going to resign?
I'd like if Zucker resigned.
I would love it if Zucker resigned, but what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the whole the palm trees and the taxes. Yeah, was that taken a smidge out of context? Yeah, there was more to it. Is he technically right that Buffalo's not a destination city right now for the NHL players? Yeah, but guess whose job it is to make it that? Kevyn Adams.
That went almost viral. I feel like every outlet was taking that and running with it.
Almost? It's gone viral. Liam McHugh from TNT is making fun of, and people are getting mad at them, and it's like, guys, yeah, is it annoying as a Sabres fan? Sure, but like, come on,
The-
like, what are we doing? Like, Adams, you can't say that the Bills had to build up their team and become a contender to become a destination. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to build your team up and make people want to come here. You've been here for 4+ years, Adams. You've had time to build this thing up, and you just haven't. You failed.
Oh.
The press conference, I understand people asked just to talk to Adams, and for some reason they decided to throw on a press conference. But the one thing I used to give Adams credit for was he was usually really good in press conferences. That press conference was not good. Even if there was some good that he said, it wasn't a positive showing for him. And then for the team to lay a clunker against Utah right after is hilarious.
Yeah, it was not a good look that the changes that they're talking about are being implemented, because they can talk all they want, but until the actual things change on the ice, I don't think people are just tired of hearing it. They're tired of hearing about the things in the building that are great, but they're not winning them hockey games. He also brought up, and I don't know if I want to bring this up to you or not on the show, but he talked about Terry Pegula and saying that he talks to him on a daily basis and that Terry is committed to doing whatever it takes to win in this organization, and he's done it down the road with the Buffalo Bills. Again, completely different business model. An NFL team is a completely different animal than running an NHL team, and clearly that's why there's been a discrepancy in the success of both franchises, with the Bills, being perennial playoff teams with a top 5 player in all the NFL and Josh Allen, and then the Buffalo Sabres down the road having missed the playoffs 14 straight years. So I know that Terry Pegula has not talked to the media since 2020, and maybe there's reason for that. Maybe he talks about Adams being the guy to be able to go there and put out the fires and be the damage control guy. It seems like, Terry has instilled a lot of trust in Kevyn Adams, maybe more than a lot of other GMs in the National Hockey League. I feel like Adams is almost like a team president in that sense, where he oversees a lot of different things, given his background and the way that he's moved around, not just the Sabres, but the business side of Pegula Sports and Entertainment. So I think he gets a little bit more leeway in that sense with the owner, but those comments he said also were something that were eye-catch.
Yeah, so I'm going to preface this. I have said multiple times on Twitter that Terry Pegula doesn't care. I'm going to walk that back. I think he cares. I think he's just completely incompetent. Like, you're telling me that the owner has talked to the GM every day about this hockey team and hasn't tried to get something to change? It's been 14 years. And this guy who is supposedly talking to GMs every single day isn't pushing for more things to change. Like, I know he's fired a lot of coaches, he's fired a lot of GMs, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. If you're talking to the GM every day, wouldn't your first thing that comes out of your mouth be like, so what are we doing here? So I've walked it back from he doesn't care to he's just completely not good at being an NHL owner. And I don't think there's many people that would disagree. It can be harsh, sure. But, like, you haven't made the playoffs for 14 years. You fired Darcy Regier. You hired Tim Murray. Wasn't a experienced NHL GM. But Tim Murray, like him or not, and by the end we wanted him gone, but like him or not, he was aggressive and made things happen. Did it blow up in his face monumentally? Absolutely. But he made things happen. Jason Botterill, more smart, more calculated, made some good moves, had some questionable head scratchers, but at the end of the day, kind of sat on his hands a little too much.
And didn't
Kevyn
draft
Adams,
CHL players.
Yeah. Kevyn Adams, promoted from the business side, never been an NHL GM before, has done it. He deserves credit. I want to stress that he deserves credit. He built up the prospect. He's made some good moves in the bottom 6. Acquiring Greenway was good. The Byram trade was a wash, but he's a solid player. The McLeod trade looks like it's going to be good, depending on what that long-term contract looks like. But every GM they've had has had a fatal flaw, and I don't think I'm the only one who says this. I would kill to have Tim Murray as my GM right now, because I guarantee you there'd be a top 6 forward coming in that door tomorrow. Now, again, he wasn't very good, but he made something happen. Like, we're at the point now where it's just, you need to show some sign of life that you can do this. Because we know he can build a prospect pool. We know he can acquire bottom 6 talent. But the one thing, and Alex Tuck aside, that Eichel trade is an outlier to me because he had to make that trade. Eichel wanted out. Aside from the Eichel trade, there has been no significant external addition to the top 6. He's drafted some guys, yes. Tage has developed. Cousins was looking like he was developing. It's not like, it's just, if Adams has all this trust in the world from Terry Pegula, then you should have the trust to go be aggressive and make a move. And he's just, there's just mixed, something's not adding up. Pegula is giving him every resource to win, but there's $8 million in cap space. That doesn't compute. And fans know that doesn't compute. Fans know that is a crock. So let's get out of here with that.
Does he want to make the playoffs this year? Because he talks about the $8 million being something that they can utilize down the road. Well, can they really, though? Because you're going to have to re-sign a few guys this next offseason. So if your goal is to make the playoffs now, it doesn't matter if you have $8 million or $16 million. You use it to your advantage. Now, when February's trade deadline comes around, do they go out and get somebody? Or do they go the other way and sell off a couple of their pending UFAs, trade away Zucker, which I would think would be a huge mistake when he's one of the better players on the team so far this year, as a guy on a 1-year deal making $4 million, $5 million. A 2-year deal, at $5 million per. But it's like, why was another move not made for those guys? And you talk about those guys underperforming, like Cousin, and he's a guy that Elliot Friedman, as you mentioned on 32 Thoughts, said that would they be scared to trade him, thinking another situation of a Sam Reinhart or a Ryan O'Reilly or a Brandon Montour would be in that scenario if they were to trade away Dylan Cousins. But, I think that they've been through that so many times that, you have to try something if it's not working. And you've locked up all these guys for long-term deals. You've got Owen Power making $8 million a year when he was asked by Mike Harrington why he can't play defense and why you're locking him up. And Kevyn Adams just kept saying, I know how to win a Stanley Cup. That was, another soundbite. And he also said you have to look at the whole body of work. Well, if it's the whole body of work as the player or is it as the team collective, because the team is not getting any better.
Yeah, I think Owen Power is just a popular scapegoat for people, so I'm not even going to touch base on that part. But everything else, you shouldn't be scared to trade a guy like Cousins if the right offer comes across your desk. You shouldn't be. The core four, I think it's fair to say the core four of the Sabres that not are untouchable, but the core four of the Sabres I don't think are the problem here are Tage, Dahlin, Power, and Len Luukkonen, because he's been consistent. Those four. Anyone else should be on the table. Anyone else should be being shopped to, make a significant move or whatever. But we'll talk about that in the next half because we're going to talk about what we think needs to be done. The thing that kills me is he talks about this long-term plan and all the things like that. You don't, I'm not going to deviate from that. Show me one iota of proof that your long-term plan is working and that you shouldn't deviate from. He can't. So the press conference was a disaster on so many things. It wasn't good. It embarrassed himself. It embarrassed the team. I don't think his own players liked hearing no one wants to come here, whatever. But what it did was it galvanized a fan base and gave them a bit to use against it. Dude, people are bringing palm trees and wearing Hawaiian shirts to the game. The one thing you're not supposed to do at a press conference is give people content, and you gave them a gold mine with that palm tree quote. And you're going to have to bear that for the rest of the season until you are gone or until you fix this. And if you have any pride whatsoever, that will bother the hell out of you when you will do something.
The last thing I'll say is that he said that he believes in this group and he'll go to war with these guys. Well, he might go to war with them and he might, he might not make it out.
Yeah, he ain't going to make it out if that's his mentality. I'm going to go to war with this group. This group hasn't done crap.